We are ready now to listen to the words of the Holy Gospel, the good news of Jesus for us. Please stand and join me in the Gospel acclamation.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, "The scribes and Pharisees have taken their seat on the chair of Moses. Therefore, do and observe all things whatsoever they tell you. But do not follow their example. For they preach, but they do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens hard to carry and lay them on people's shoulders. But they will not lift a finger to move them. All their works are performed to be seen. They widen their phylacteries and lengthen their tassels. They love places of honor at banquets, seats of honor in synagogues, greetings in marketplaces, and salutation, Rabbi. As for you, do not be called Rabbi. You have but one teacher, and you are all brothers. Call no one on earth your father. You have but one Father in heaven. Do not be called master. You have but one master, the Christ. The greatest among you must be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, but whoever humbles himself will be exalted." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Well, during this month of November, we are special remembrance to the souls of the departed who have passed away in the past few months, especially at the service here today. So I offer my condolences to all the family members here who have lost someone in the last few months. We all go through that, and we can understand the sense of loss, and yet the sense of hope that Christ gives us. November is a very special month because of All Saints and All Souls Day, and remembrance of the departed, but also it's ushered in by a very special celebration. Just been through it this week, celebration of Halloween, when the kids go out and try to gather all the candy that they can and take it home and eat what their parents let them eat. Go out trick-or-treating. I don't get a lot of visitors up where I live, but nevertheless, I have been in that situation where they go out and people often, most of the time, wear a costume of some sort, try to hide their identity. Many wear masks. That's a good way to hide one's identity. I was thinking, reading today's gospel, that the idea of pretending to be someone else, as the trick-or-treaters do by disguising themselves, fits well into today's gospel. And these words that Christ spoke to the leaders of the church there, the synagogue, and trying to correct them from some of their faults, how they were the great pretenders, pretending to be someone that they really weren't. They dressed up in certain ways, in religious garb and religious articles and so on, and acted in certain ways to pretend that they were really more pious and more holy than they really were inside. And that's why Christ, in a sense, attacked them verbally. And I think the idea being a great pretender kind of fits that situation of the Pharisees and the scribes, that pretending to be holy when they really weren't. Now, maybe there were some of them good, certainly there were, but at least most of the ones that Christ dealt with, well, the word hypocrisy comes to mind, to some of them in a way. Also, as a clergyman myself, and working within the church in a certain function throughout my adult life, that reading of today's gospel can be a little bit, cause a little bit of uneasiness. It can even kind of be a good examination of conscience for people in situations or places where the priest might hold, and all of us who have any power or authority within the church. For instance, it talks about the Pharisees putting heavy burdens on people, and they will not help to lift them whatsoever. And I trust that I have not ever put heavy burdens on anyone, or also performing work to be seen by others and to get the adulation and kind of honor that might give. How about the idea of the gospel said about getting the best seats at banquets? Well, often when I go to a banquet, they automatically offer you the best seat in the house. Sometimes at the head table, and at the weddings, especially sometimes with the wedding party itself. Or even in church, Christ said, you always seek the best seats in the synagogue. Well, have you noticed that I got the best seat in the house up here? Or when we have fast, the very, very best seat. It's always nice to be greeted by people when you're out, among the public. And there was one kid, though, that used to drive me crazy when I was a younger priest. And he was kind of a wise guy, but a good kid. But he wouldn't call me father. He would call me man. He'd say, hi, man. I'd say, David, don't call me that. Call me father. Okay, man. He'd say. But anyway, I say some of these things certainly with tongue-in-cheek, as it were, so to speak. But it is true that authority and the power that goes with it sometimes can cause problems for some people. We all know those who abuse authority. Someone once said that, a very famous quote, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is really quite true in many, many cases. We can't let it go to our heads. And that would apply to all people, really, in situations of authority, not just to the clergy, as you might say, within a church, but people in the government, of course, in whatever place they might be, within the church naturally. Any place where authority is wielded, have to keep that in mind, that in the workplace, certainly in families, parents have to wield their authority. We know what the responsibility, and of course the kids should listen. But there's one sentence in today's gospel that might cause a little bit of wonder. Among others, the one that struck me is Christ said, after condemning all of these teachers by the misuse of their authority, he said to the people, he says, but observe and do all the things that they tell you. Well, why would you want to do what they told you when they were really kind of being imposters themselves? Well, the point I think Christ is making is you don't have to be a perfect person to speak the truth or to give some good advice to someone. Very few of us are perfect, so when we do give advice, if it's good, it should be taken. For instance, within the family, the parents have the main authority there. And let's say, for instance, that the father wants to tell his son, or the mother wants to tell her son, that it's a good idea in life not to smoke cigarettes. And yet, they themselves are chain smokers, smoking all the while. Don't you smoke, it's bad for you. Well, that's good advice, and people should listen. But I think it would make a bigger impact if they would practice, what they preach, because actions do speak louder than words in all situations of life. So just as leaders in various areas of life are responsible in how they treat other people, treat their followers, so too you and I are responsible in a sense for each other. You set a good example for one another. For instance, we can lead people to Christ or away from Christ by the way we lead our lives. There's a little short story told about a man whom you all know by name Mahatma Gandhi of India, who fought for the independence of that country, and was not a Christian but a Hindu, a very religious Hindu person who really walked the walk, and he was a peaceful person. But he said about Christians in general to a particular person, he said, you know, I like your Christ, but I am kind of turned off by many Christians because they are so unlike your Christ. And that was a very keen observation, very, very holy and a wise person. So I think Christ is saying today simply the very something we all know and try to practice in our lives is that simply that practice what we preach, and the more Christ-like, the better. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.